RPGs get an unfair reputation for being too expensive to collect. Although I admit that for systems such as the Sega Saturn and Super Nintendo, there's a strong argument to be made for it. But I've always been somewhat cheap, and I thought it would be kind of fun to look at what sort of collection could be built on a tight budget today. So if you too stubbornly view constraints as delightful challenges instead of pesky deterrents, then please join me together as we explore 10 cheap RPGs for the Frugal Collector, NES edition. The cheapest game on my list is Swords and Serpents, a simplified dungeon crawler from Interplay, produced by Fallout's own Brian Fargo. A card-only copy will, on average, run you about $6, perhaps even less with complete copies costing under $20. It's an all-around very budget-friendly title, and shockingly, for an acclaimed published product, is a very decent game. In fact, it's my personal favorite dungeon crawler on the NES. Swords and Serpents doesn't bog the player down with unnecessary exposition. There is virtually no story to explain. A group of adventurers, as ruled by the player, are dropped into a dungeon where they descend its many layers, hunting for special stones needed to forge a special sword to kill the special dragon. The dungeon is populated by cryptic old men dishing out hints, and intricately detailed animated monsters dishing out the pain. Swords and Serpents isn't much to look at. Your party navigates the dungeon map by arrow, so the care invested into enemy design really pays off. Combat is also super snappy, with each encounter resolving typically within seconds. There's very few menus to mess about with. Characters hit with A button, and your magicians pull up spells with B. That's it. The most difficult aspect of the combat system is timing the B button presses to coincide with your magician's turn before somebody dies. Because, weirdly enough, combat is real-time. So you're mashing buttons, the characters are flailing their weapons, and things are dropping dead. It's just pure chaotic fun. And not only is it fun, but fun you can share. Swords and Serpents, in addition to being stupid cheap, is also one of the few RPGs ever that supports multiplayer. Dungeon magic is everything I hate about dungeon crawlers. It's hard, confusing, and a pain in the ass to play. Let me paint a picture. There's no map for the first town, which has multiple exits to the wilderness, and I pray as I blindly run frantic through the streets that each door I knock on will lead me to the inn where for 2 gold I can rest and restore my HP. Only monsters don't drop gold, so my resources are quickly depleting. I've started selling my equipment just to cover my medical bills, and I still haven't learned my way around the village, and the legions of fucking NPCs mucking about keep jumping in my face and blocking my path. Talking to these morons devours them apparently, so I start mashing the talk button as I run around to delete everyone in existence. And that's just the town experience. Outside is somehow unfathomably dumber. The forest is crawling with snakes who gang up on me from all 4 directions and perform near instant kills. At one point, I'd armed myself with the best equipment 100 golds could buy, but I had to sell my clothes to stay alive. Killing a snake, a task of Olympian proportions, mind, nets me exactly 1 experience point, and I must kill 15 of the little evil fucks to level up. I read a guide online that recommends cheesing the monsters by hitting them and immediately backing up 2 squares to avoid being bitten. I figured the guide writer had figured out the cheaty wins button, but nope, I'm still dead. I read the game manual for tips, and the cheaty wins button isn't a cheaty wins button at all, but a suggested fucking battle tactic called parrying. Backing up and running away is not what the word parry means, you illiterate fucks. No, I'm not angry ranting about a shitty NES dungeon crawler. You're angry ranting about a shitty NES dungeon crawler. I finally level up, step outside, and die. I'm broken naked. And I have to kill 35 more snakes to hit level 2. Fuck this game. Somehow Dungeon Magic is worth $1 more than Swords and Serpents, which is the vastly more approachable and the better weird real-time dungeon crawler. The only thing this stupid piece of shit has going for it is the fact that it's cheap. Despite itself being developed by Hudson Soft, Faxanadu is the second game in Falcom's Xanadu series, which itself is a spin-off from its Dragon Slayer Legend of Heroes series, and the only Xanadu game to be released in the US. Ignoring the N-Gage's own Xanadu next, as God intended, of course. Faxanadu also, notably, continues the odd Japanese tradition of making the second game in your top-down action RPG series inexplicably side-scrolling. I don't know what that was about. It was an NES thing. Anyway, you play the unnamed hero, now returned to his homeland only to discover it in crumbling disarray. The world tree is dying, and its once peaceful dwarven inhabitants have been transformed into hideous monsters. And so, the hero must scale the tree's massive dungeon and town-laden boughs, revitalizing its dry well springs and ultimately kicking the butt of the big bad jerk causing all the mischief. I have to give Faxanadu marks for presentation. The text is very well written, for an NES game, and the pixel work is stunning. Its intricately detailed backgrounds definitely make it the most attractive of the Zelda 2-inspired action RPGs, and its unforgiving combat encounters make it arguably the most challenging. Patient players who take the time to memorize the various enemy movement patterns and perfect the somewhat tricky long jump maneuver will be rewarded with a rich adventure that is ridiculously affordable at only $7 a cart. As the granddaddy of the JRPG, the original Dragon Warrior predates all the quality of life advancements that have come to the genre since 1986, such as not having to open a menu, just use the staircase or talk to an NPC. It has no compelling narrative beyond the barest of cliched fairy tales. Rescue the dragon-napped princess, collect the thingies, and defeat the evil warlock. Although bonus points must be given to the localization effort for their charming use of ye olde English, especially in an era when game translations were frequently half-assed and riddled with both factual and grammatical errors. The gameplay, however, is a tedious cycle of grinding for money and experience before crossing the bridge to the next dungeon in town. Rinse and repeat. All Dragon Warrior really has going for it today is its low price, significantly lower than any of its sequels, and its timelessly adorable monster designs. All hail the artistic whimsy of one Akira Toriyama. For $7, Dragon Warrior is worth a purchase for those who can appreciate a relaxing grindfest. And it can be an interesting historical artifact for those who cannot. Like most early-gen NES games, Ultima Exodus is a bit rough around the edges. But those looking for an explorative, non-linear CRPG with a JRPG aesthetic have few other options. And at this price, on the NES, they have none. Players begin their adventure by rolling up a band of adorable chibi heroes who can be swapped out and replaced at any point, sometimes necessarily so, as permadeath by incompetent doctor is a likely possibility. The heroes then roam the countryside, and delve first-person dungeons in search of the MacGuffins needed to unlock the path to the lair of the big evil wizard dude Exodus, who terrorizes the world of Caesarea. Incidentally, Ultima Exodus is one hapless damsel away from having the same flimsy plot as Dragon Warrior. Anyway, your would-be saviors of the planet spend their days doing tactical battles with mystery mobs who scale level-wise to match that of your most advanced in-party member. It is entirely possible to level fuck your crew, so promote your heroes at the castle with caution, lest you want to roll up a new band of greenhorns and start over. Ultima Exodus's undeniable charm lies within the freedom it presents to the player. Wage battle with little old ladies and town guards at your peril. Travel the world by foot, horseback, pirate ship, and waxing moon gate. Brave the desolate wilderness of icy ambrosia, and pray your ass does not receive a swift kicking. Ultima Exodus is an alluringly mysterious and hardcore RPG experience which can be readily had at a very reasonable cost of $10. I suppose it's no wonder that Willow is often overlooked, despite being one of the best action RPGs for the system. It is a licensed title made in an era when LJN was flooding the market with regrettable games based on much more popular films. And Willow's box art makes Fester's Quest look like an artistic masterpiece. But despite appearances, Willow is fantastic, even for those wholly unfamiliar with the source material. Being a fervent Willow fan myself, I'm happy to give a brief summary of why this particular gem is a steal at $10 a cart. But if you're interested in a more in-depth review, you're in luck. I've already made one. Anyway, here's the short version. Players assume the role of the hobbit-like Willow, a fledgling wizard. Throughout his travels across the land of Nockmar, Willow learns powerful and varied magical abilities which aid him in his march against the evil sorcerer queen Bad Morda and her army of monsters. Battles are won by magic or blade. Our diminutive hero is an unlikely but capable warrior. In fact, the more he wields a weapon, the faster and more agile his attacks become. A unique mechanic which sets Willow apart from other action RPGs of the period. Graphically, Willow is striking. You can obviously see that it's very good looking, especially for an NES title. The NPC portraits are excellent 8-bit caricatures of the movie characters, and the environments breathe life whenever monsters are present. The grass and foliage whip around violently, the waves dance in the sea, and the sand pulses in the heat. It's an impressive effect that adds visual tension to even the most harmless enemy encounters. So maybe you don't purchase every game on this list, but you'd be a fool if it took. Wait, shit, wrong short dude. I mean, you'd be a stupid Daikini baby not to grab a copy of Willow. Say what you might about Culture Brain's Magic Scheherazade, but it's not boring. You, yes, you the human player watching this video, you are really a time-traveling magician from ancient Arabia. Surprise. Some evil dickhead has imprisoned your girlfriend and wiped your memory before sending you to the modern world. But Coronia, your devoted magical squirrel friend, has tracked you down and reopened the time door. Now you gotta jump in there, kick dickhead's ass, and save the world. In an era where RPG plots were rarely more involved than the king has asked you to fight a dude, Scheherazade scores major points for creative embellishment, even if the core theme is pretty much the same. But the story details aren't half as interesting as the gameplay. Magic Scheherazade is half turn-based Dragon Warrior and half adventuring Zelda. Meaning while you're jaunting around the overworld and wagging your scimitar at bandits and such, you'll trigger full-on random menu battles. Battles fought with the aid of your eccentric band of weirdo party members. Of course, the adventuring bit isn't all combat. Each of the game's 5 stages has you running around talking to townies, gathering clues, and hopping through time doors. Past Arabia can be affected by altering puzzle bits in Pastor Arabia. It's a bit of Chrono Trigger meets Link to the Past and is my favorite, absolute favorite aspect. Honestly, for $10 a cart, you have zero excuses not to pick up the Magic Scheherazade, one of the most ambitious and enjoyable standout oddities of the NES library. While I love the Battle of Olympus, especially for its ancient Greek setting, I also can't shake the feeling that it was developed as a bit of covert edutainment. The story, a loose retelling of Orpheus's tragic journey into the underworld to retrieve his dead wife, is dense with Grecian mythological name-dropping from the likes of Olympian B-listers Prometheus, Artemis, and Hermes. But underneath the historical information dump is a friendlier, cuddlier, Zelda 2-inspired action RPG. And by inspired, I mean it shamelessly incorporates copied art assets. But hey, when you're developing a game with 3 people, you do what you have to do to get the job done. While the game's similarity to The Adventure of Link is uncanny, it's not without distinction. Olympus ditches the overworld, and with it random encounters, for one continuous forking map. Like in Faxanadu, the unbroken map approach lends to the feeling that this hero is engaged in a true odyssey. But because the forks aren't particularly distinctive nor memorable, remembering where to go and how is often a pain in the ass. It also doesn't help that there's a lot of NPCs in this game, each one snugly nested in his own cozy home. Forget small talk or story exposition, every single one of these little digital bastards drops an important hint or quest request. And it's all a lot to remember, and if you plan on playing Olympus, and I recommend that you do, it's fun and, more importantly, inexpensive, $11 a cart, you're gonna want to keep some notes. Or play with a navigator. Thanks, Andrew!
Hey, glad I could help. You're welcome, Daria. Okay. Alright, that's fine. I don't care anymore.
I've mentioned so many Zelda 2-inspired games in this video already that it seems a shame not to plug the original. And at $13 a cart, The Adventure of Link certainly qualifies as cheap. It's hard to imagine that any of you watching would already be familiar with the game, but for the sake of consistency, please humor my short summary. The Princess Zelda has fallen under a sleeping curse, and it falls to a teenage Link to lug an invisible chest around Hyrule, inserting crystals into special palace crystal divots in order to open a path to the Great Palace, kill his dark doppelganger, retrieve the Triforce of Wisdom, and break the curse. In other words, save the world and rescue a girl. Surprise! It's an NES RPG plot, like nearly every other NES RPG I've talked about so far. Like the original Zelda, The Adventure of Link has a strong emphasis on exploration, probably more so than any other game in this video. Practically every subquest in Link's journey involves deciphering a poorly worded hint, doing the thing which is most likely hidden in a particular nondescript overworld tile, and trekking back to the original quest giver to collect a magic spell or specialty item. Along the journey, you'll do battle with many monsters, some of which award XP and some of which, annoyingly, do not. At first glance, the game may appear to be non-linear, but in reality, the player is expected to perform very specific tasks in a very specific order, lest they find themselves in the wrong place getting their butt kicked in trying to fight the wrong enemies using the wrong tools. I'd nearly given up on the game after the first palace, but thanks to the guidance of my friend and fellow video maker Luke,
no problem,
I got a bit sidetracked and beat 5 of the 7 palaces. While it's definitely a frustrating game, it does capture that familiar Zelda magic and becomes infinitely more enjoyable with familiarity. Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link was such an unusual follow-up to the original adventure that a ton of other developers copied its formula right down to its insidious dickbats. Speaking of which, a montage. At $15 for a cartridge, Crystalis is definitely one pricey cheap game. But I promise, the extra dollars spent on it is nothing in light of the quality of production you'll find here. In the year 1997, war broke, bombs detonated, and the apocalypse happened. 100 years later, a scientist awakens from stasis and embarks on a journey across the now feral planet to do fight against were-tigers, humongous insects, and an evil emperor who seeks to conquer the world with the aid of weapons from the past. Yes, it's still that familiar travel the world and fight the evil fucker plotline, but done with embellishment and a deeper moral. But seeing as how no one plays 8-bit RPGs for the storylines, it's fortunate that Crystalis is also a lot of fun to play. An action RPG with a charged sword that never runs out allows players to enthusiastically run through dungeons and fields, power-shotting up the joints. As with Willow, the unnamed hero, 2 commands an arsenal of magical abilities, which spice up both combat and exploration play. Heck, half the fun in Crystalis is seeing what novelty each new village brings. Events such as riding dolphins and transforming NPCs eliminate the monotony of talking to the villagers before proceeding trap, that's too commonly found in other old RPGs. You probably don't need further encouragement to consider adding Crystalis to your collection, it's just that good. But even so, I have a full review which you can find in the description below. Spoiler alert, I absolutely loved it. And there you have it, 10 perfectly playable, mostly playable RPGs. Many of which are very decent games, and a few of which rank among the best RPGs for the NES. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope I was able to shed a new light on an old game you hadn't considered playing before.